Hare Krishna. Welcome back to the Vaishnava Sadachara course. We will be discussing today about dealings with different groups of people, we could say different stakeholders, and how we can, what are the broad parameters involved and the principles involved in dealing with them. So we'll talk about 6 sets of people, overview, in a quick overview we'll do. So here, the devotees, there are seniors, juniors, equals. Then there are people in general, especially influential people in society. Then we talk about our own relatives and how to deal with them, our relatives and acquaintances who are non-devotees. Then we will talk about how to deal with other temples and yatras. Then we will talk about how to deal with people of other faith, and we will talk about how to deal with women or in general the members of the opposite sex and worldly resources such as wealth. Both Prabhupada talks about together in general. So let's go over these one by one. So with respect to dealing with devotees, it's a broad subject, but we are given excellent guideline by in the Dhruva Maharaj section by Narad Muni when he says Gunadhikan mudam lipset anukrosham gunadhamat maitrim samanad anvichet natapair abhibhuyate. So he says Gunadhikan mudam lipset. Guna adhikan. The adhika means more, those who have more qualities than us. That means those who are more advanced than us. Mudam lipset, and should delight in their association. Then anukrosham gunadhamat, those who have lesser qualities than us. Anukrosham, we be kind, compassionate to them. And samanad maitrim anvichet, those who are equal to us, we befriend them. And interestingly, he says the result of this is natapair abhibhuyate, that there will not be misery. Misery will not result in the life of such a person. Now we know that there are these 3 kleshas, adhyatmik, adhibhautik and adidaivik. And while all kleshas are painful, but the adhibhautik kleshas are something which can often be aggravated enormously by our improper behavior, and they can be greatly minimized by proper behavior. So natapair abhibhuyate, so the adhibhautik tap can substantially be reduced by proper behavior. Now, and especially in a community, we will always have these 3 levels of people: those who are above us, those who are equal to us, and those who are below us. Now exactly how do we decide who is above? Here the Narad Muni uses the parameter of guna, adhikan, those who have more qualities than us. So the seniors he is talking about not in terms of necessarily age or any other such external parameter. He talks in terms of qualities. Now when we are in a movement, there is often this challenge that how do we exactly determine the hierarchy? There may be devotees who may have come much earlier to us in the movement, but then we may be in an authoritative position where they are under us, or they are in a community. For example, we may be in a community, we may be 2nd generation leaders, and there may be 1st generation devotees who are in that movement, who are in that same community. So often it is difficult for us to decide who is a senior and who is junior. Now certainly we shouldn't think that managerial position automatically implies seniority. Just the fact that somebody has been in Krishna consciousness for a long time means that that person is due respect, and so that person needs to be treated as a senior, even if managerially that person may not be having a position. And there is of course the criteria of varna and ashram, where sannyasis are respected by grahasthas in general because they are in the renounced order. So we can go from the varna ashram point of view. We can go the brahmanas are respected; those who are 2nd initiate will be respected by the other community, by others in the community. The varna ashram considerations can be there. Number of years of practice consideration can be there. Even the age consideration can be there. Somebody who is elderly, they deserve some respect. So Primarily here seniority is, which we talk about in devotional terms, is in terms of number of years of practice of Krishna consciousness. So that we should not necessarily equate with advanced. That it is, a senior devotee need not be advanced, but we don't, as a movement, when we have to have structured behavior, we cannot model it on parameters such as advanced, which are not very easy to pursue. Now we can take inspiration from advanced devotees, and certain devotees may inspire us, and we may consider them advanced also. It can work both ways. But with respect to etiquette, seniority in terms of the when that person came to Krishna consciousness, when that person took initiation, in which ashram, which varna that person is, all those factors also are important. And of course, managerial positions are also important. If somebody is in a managerial important position, then naturally that also has to be respected. So, gunadhikan mudam lipset. If somebody is an advanced devotee, then when we get the association, it is a matter of, it is a festival. The Bhagavatam says that just as a peacock, when it sees clouds in the sky, it gives out its blossoms and delights in seeing the clouds. Similarly, a devotee delights when when on getting the association of senior devotees. So seniors need to be given proper respects. In the Bhagavatam, the example is given of how when Vidura saw Uddhava and he heard that the Lord had instructed him. So Vidura wanted to hear from Uddhava what the instructions were. So in one sense, Vidura wanted to put Uddhav in the position for instructing spiritual master. And Uddhav hesitated, and he said that Maitreya Rishi was also there when the Lord spoke, and he is much more senior to me, and he is actually, you are also senior to me. So rather than I speaking, let him speak. So then Maitreya Rishi speaks to Vidura. So this is an example of how, now there's a question here is not of who is advanced. Uddhava, we could say, was a far more intimate associate of Krishna than Maitreya, and then we could even say that Vidura was more intimately connected with Krishna as far as the direct dealings was concerned than Maitreya. But still we have Uddhava giving, deferring to Vidura, Uddhava deferring to Maitreya in because of his seniority and because of his position. So how this will be translated into practical day-to-day administrative realities will vary according to time, place, circumstance. But at least the awareness when it is there that somebody is senior, that person needs to be respected, then that helps put in place a structure of thought and conduct, which we may have to adjust according to time, place, circumstance. But overall, there has to be respect for the seniors, and there has to be pleasure in getting their association and sharing their association with others. Then it is anukroshet gunadhama. So after seniors, so Narad Muni in his verse, it goes up, goes down, and then comes to the middle. So anukrosham gunadhama, those who are younger to us. Now sometime we will talk about this much more in detail, that sometimes as leaders we have to give corrections to others. So how to give corrections properly. But as leaders who have subordinates, then we have to be, it's important to be kind and considerate and compassionate to them. In fact, that kindness is the greatest impetus often for young devotees to keep moving onwards in their devotional service. So such kindness and as he says, mercy. So mercy is not just in terms of giving classes and sharing spiritual knowledge. It is also in terms of overall being kind and gentle. And if they have some concerns, some anxieties, some grievances, then dealing with them in a sensitive and caring way, that helps a lot for those devotees to stay motivated in the practice of devotional service. After all, the junior devotees, those who are younger to us, they are going to carry on the legacy of Srila Prabhupada, they are going to carry on the legacy of Krishna, and they are the people who are also going to represent Krishna. They are representing Krishna in a small circle. Now they are going to represent more. So they are, like, we could say, like our internal customers. The staff in an organization is like the internal customers, and to the extent the staff is pleased, they will deal. Staff is happy, they will behave properly with the customers and the business will flourish. So like that, although we are not going to talk, we are not into money primarily, we want to share spiritual knowledge, but the principles of multiple organizations also apply to us to some extent. So if younger devotees who are like our staff, who are our members, if they are happy, then if they feel encouraged and inspired by the association of their seniors, then they feel motivated to act properly and attract others. So the kindness, to treat them like younger members of our family. And even if they make mistakes, we correct them lovingly, gently. And that inspires them to move on. And then probably the most challenging is the relationship with equals. And we see that this relationship with equals had great difficulty, caused great difficulty in Gaudiya Math after Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur departed. And Prabhupada also had great concern about that his disciples should be able to deal with each other properly. So many of his leaders, he expresses concerns that sometimes there are quarrels between devotees. And he would request devotees to cooperate and live together. So he told that you can show your love for me by how you cooperate. Now, it equals, it is said, be friendly. Now as friends, now when we are working with other devotees, every devotee needs his or her own space. And within that space they can operate, and they will all, our movement will grow organically as different nucleus centers, where each devotee is like a center who attracts others to Krishna. And then there is overlap between these. So while dealing with equals, every devotee has to be given space, and then when the space that overlaps, there has to be a proper arrangement, proper system by which things can be dealt with. So we see that among the Pandavas, when the 5 Pandavas married Draupadi, there was a hierarchy. Yudhishthira was their unquestioned leader, but still they're all 5 were husbands for Draupadi. So now, in order to have a proper harmonious dealing, what was done? It was not just, oh, we are 5 brothers, we'll trust each other. Narad Muni himself came. Now somebody would say, why does a sage have to interfere in the marital affairs of householders? But Narad Muni considered it so important that it should not lead to dissension among them. And he told the story of a demon, Sunda and Upansunda, who had a gift of invincibility, of not being killed by anyone except each other. And they went around wreaking havoc in the universe. Still, so Brahma, who had given the benediction, realized on the petition of the Devatas what a grave risk they posed for the universe. And then he created a prostitute, a woman, Apsara named Tilottama. And then when she came, both of them got attracted to her. And both of them said, oh, she will be my wife and your sister. And then they fought with each other and killed each other. And that's how the world was saved from their scourge. So Narad Muni told the story, and he said that you have to have a proper arrangement so that there is no misunderstanding. And then they made a plan that when one of us is with Draupadi, then others should not interfere at that time. And it was such a, they took that arrangement so seriously that when Arjuna, when he had to violate that because he wanted to serve a Brahmana, his weapons were in the chamber where Yudhishthira and Draupadi were there. So he went inside because he wanted to serve a Brahmana. And he served the Brahmana and came back. But after that, he decided to go to the forest for 1 year. That was the term of exile. So we see that they took seriously the matter of making a policy about how to deal with each other with respect to this specific contentious issue. And not only they make the policy seriously with Narad Muni getting involved, but after making the policy, they also stuck to the policy very seriously. And when Yudhishthira actually begged Arjuna, requested you to, no, I am not offended, you can stay here, you don't need to go. But he said, no, I have to keep my word, I will go. So the point is that dealing with equals, we cannot take our equals for granted, thinking, oh, he's also a devotee, she's also a devotee. They will understand. Yes, whether they understand or not is not the issue. The issue is whether we understand the dynamics of the relationship and whether we are ready to show the proper sensitivity, proper respect. So in general, whenever there are contentious issues between devotees, it's important that we sit together properly and discuss and resolve the issues. We'll discuss this more in future sessions also. Now with respect to, apart from devotees, when we will move outward from the devotee community, then apart from the devotee community, we have other temples. So a similar principle applies to dealing with other temples also, other temples or other yatras. So overall, we are members of the same family, but we are like relatives. So two temples are like relatives staying at two different places, and yet we are belonging to the same bigger family. The Prabhupada said he's built a house in which the whole world can live. So different temples are like different rooms, or we could say if that is a mansion, then there are different big rooms in that one big mansion that Srila Prabhupada has created. So now there are overall it is easy to have good relationships if we don't have to have any interaction over contentious issues, but often contentious issues come up. So for example, can one devotees from one temple go to another temple's zone for doing book distribution? Can they go for raising funds if they need? Now these are issues which need to be sensitively dealt with. Somebody may say that, oh, your temple has already got so much funds, even if you go and take a little fund, what is the problem? No, rather than taking things, this is basically taking things for granted, and when we take things for granted like that, it hurts people. So the same thing which is applied to the Pandavas can apply here also. There has to be discussion, and then a proper policy is to be made, and once the policy is made, one sticks to the policy so that there is no unnecessary heart burning. So often in the devotee community, what happens is that when between temples there is some cause for dissension because of inappropriate action from one side, rather than talking with each other, instead of talking with each other, people talk about each other. So, oh, this temple is like that temple is like that temple is like that, and unnecessarily the atmosphere, the congeniality between the temples gets spoiled. So having policies by proper discussion and then sticking to the policies. Sometimes now the policies don't have to be like absolute Lakshman Rekhas. Sometimes the policies have to be negotiated, and that also should be done with the discussion. So basically cooperation between temples is important because we are one moment, and apart from the house example, we can take the example of the army. So each temple is like a battalion, and each battalion is fighting in its own zone, but then while fighting in its own zone, there are sometimes overlaps in the zones or the areas they are fighting. So now our enemy, we have to fight with the enemy. We are waging a war against illusion. So if battalions start fighting against each other, then their effectiveness in combating with the enemy gets decreased tremendously. At Virat, when the Kaurava army discovered that it was Arjuna who was there dressed as a eunuch, then the Kripa said that, so Drona said that, oh warriors, it's impossible for us to win this war against Arjuna. So Karna started scorning Arjuna, and he started scorning Drona also, because Drona was speaking so highly about Arjuna. And hearing this, Ashwatthama became angry, and Ashwatthama was about to attack Karna. At that time, Duryodhana came in between, and Duryodhana was ineffective. So then Bhishma intervened, and Bhishma, he spoke to everyone, and he said, for an army, dissension in its ranks, dissent means resentment against authority. Dissension means fighting amongst each other itself. Dissension in its ranks is the greatest threat. Oh warriors, Arjuna is a formidable enemy, and we need to fight with him. So he pacified everyone very expertly. He said to Karna, "O Karna, Drona speaks words only to caution us. He is a great warrior and he has no fear, and he certainly is not going to abandon his duty as a warrior. But army needs to be cautious when facing a formidable enemy, and Drona's words are spoken only to make us cautious." And then he turns towards Drona and he says, "Oh, Karna only wants to inspire us to fight more heroically." And it is in that spirit of heroic fighting that Karna spoke those words. Please forgive him for those words. And then he settles the issue amicably. So sometimes when there are conflicts over some zones or some overlapping areas, overlapping zones, then maybe sometimes some senior has to get involved, and the issue has to be amicably resolved. Then beyond that, there are, as we move onwards, within the devotee community itself, there can be dealing with opposite sex. So, we get resources, we get money, and we get people, among them members of the opposite sex. The leaders are men, there are women. So then these are resources which are meant for the service of Krishna. So they are to be engaged in Krishna's service, and then if we use them for our sense gratification, not only do we go down in our devotional life, but also we hurt others, those who are involved, those who get exploited, and people in general, the devotee community as well as people in general, where bad name is created. So there has to be a great caution in dealing with these things. We have seen that, especially with respect to those who are to be protected, women and children. The children in our Gurukul, they were not protected, and we faced a huge crisis, not just in terms of the bad press and the financial implications of the child abuse case, but in terms of the loss of the younger generation who were scarred permanently. Hopefully, not permanent, not that the scars will keep them away from Krishna, but still very deep scars. So those who are to be engaged in Krishna's service, they need protection, and that reminder is that these are for Krishna's service, and we deal with them appropriately. And this is also a big subject, and this is often talked about, so I won't go into this much in detail, but the principle is that what is to be engaged in Krishna's service, they should not be used for our gratification. Then beyond that, another important group of people could be influential people in society. So when we talk about influential people in society, they can be, say, people who are big donors, people who are, in today's community, scientists are often considered very influential, and there can be others who are vital for the movement forward of a particular project. Now when it comes to donors, we are quite clear. In the Bhagavatam may condemn materialistic people, that Shvavid Varahoustakarai Samsutah Purusha Pusho Nayat Karnapathopeto Yatu Namagadagraja. That those who are not devotees, those who are not Krishna, hearing Krishna's glories, those who are not devotees, they are like dogs, hogs, camels and asses. Now when we go to people, maybe for inspiring them to give donations, we don't speak to them that, oh, you are dogs, hogs, camels, asses. Obviously not. There's a time and place for speaking everything. And of course, if they are interested in supporting Krishna's mission, then they are not non-devotees whom ought to be condemned. But even if they are non-devotees and somehow they are connected with some devotee, and we can have an opportunity to give them funds of Krishna. So the message which is to be given has to be presented in a way that enables people to come closer to Krishna. The truth, speaking truthfully, doesn't mean just speaking the truth irrespective of its effect on others. Speaking truthfully also means speaking the truth in a way that attracts people to the truth. So it may mean not that we compromise and we waffle, but that we speak to people in a way that inspires them to serve Krishna. So there are many cases where Prabhupada would go out of his way to deal extra carefully with people who are influential. So we know that Prabhupada cancelled his tour. He was on the world tour and he was in America, and when he had a opportunity to meet Indira Gandhi, cancelled his tour and came all the way to India to meet her. And then similarly, Prabhupada writes in a letter that when in the early days there were not many influential people coming to a movement. So when Brahmanand Prabhu got the opportunity to network with Macmillan and get Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita published to Macmillan, Prabhupada told, deal with them very carefully. Dealing with carefully means, if we make a word, we keep the word. If there's an appointment, we go on time. If they expect us to do something, we do it properly. So overall, a sort of careful dealing with important people can help us to reach out to reach out to a lot of people, because these people have a lot of influence. So even with scientists, Prabhupada would speak strongly about atheistic scientists who would mislead people away by godless theories. But when he asked the devotees to arrange conferences, and the devotees asked, how should we deal with these scientists? So Prabhupada said, deal with them courteously. So it is not that there one has to speak in an inappropriate way to them. So when we are dealing with influential people, we deal with them in a way that attracts them to Krishna and enables us to use their influence for reaching out, for pushing forward Krishna's message in an effective way. So some extra sensitivity is required, because these people can cause, can help in a great way and can also damage in a great way. And beyond that, the whole big field would be, before we, that will be last field, our own relatives and acquaintances, our non-devotional, pre-devotional acquaintances. Now, often when we come to devotional service, we want our relatives also to come to devotional service, but they often want us to grow onwards in our material life. So there's, in one sense, a conflict of what they want and what we want. So Prabhupada urges us to follow what Narad Muni tells a householder in his. The relatives will always give suggestions for how to make economic improvement. How to do. So you should just nod and move onwards, doing what is important for your spiritual life. That's what Narad Muni says. And Prabhupada also says something similar. Then, if we cannot act on them. But at the same time, if there is a debate, then there is unnecessarily bad breath, and especially those who are in our relationship, elder to us, they are usually not in a position to hear from us. And because they are not in a position to hear from us, our speaking to them only, and in an instructive mode only, alienates them. It doesn't help them come closer to Krishna. It makes them go away from us and go away from Krishna also. So just gentle behavior, gentle action, gentle behavior. We hear them without contradicting, and then we move on in our life. It's not that they are there to observe us all around all the time. We act in the way that is the best for our devotional service. So not having unnecessary conflicts and offering due respect. When Brahmanand Prabhu's mother came to meet Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada told Brahmanand Prabhu, bow down to her now. She had never had her son bow down, and she was wondering, what is my son doing? But Prabhupada told her to bow down, and because that was the way, through that he conveyed that you should respect your mother, respect your parents. So that sometimes in the name of protecting our devotion and not following their instructions, we may not even follow the show basic respect. So that is undesirable. One devotee, after becoming a devotee, went to his parents, went to his mother and said, if you don't chant Hare Krishna, you will become a dog. His mother, tears in her eyes, he says, you have already become a dog. Why are you behaving like this? Actually, his mother had tears in his eyes, and father said, you already become a dog. Why are you behaving like this? So we shouldn't be disrespectful. We can actually, if we are sensitive, if we are intelligent, we can walk the tread balance between, at one side, being respectful to them, and at the same time being tactful and not having to do something non-devotional just to hurt them. And the last thing which we'll discuss is people of other faith. This is an elaborate subject, and Prabhupada's pattern of behavior was broadly twofold. If somebody was a seeker coming to him, even if that person was following some other faith earlier, that doesn't matter. Prabhupada, so somebody is a nominal Christian, nominal Jew, and not really practicing that path at all, then Prabhupada will inspire them, practice Krishna consciousness. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy is there, you can advance tremendously, with tremendous speed and ease. But if somebody was already a committed follower of a particular path, then Prabhupada would not try to convert them. When some people who were either nuns or pastors or other priests who would come to meet him, then he would be very cordial and respectful to them. Now we know that with respect to Christians, he would take issues with the thou shalt not kill. But apart from, so he would be concerned if they're not following the instructions of their faith. But at the same time, he was respectful that they would follow. He was courteous with them because they are following that faith. So we have Bhaktivedanta Thakur speaking in the Chaitanya Shikshamrit, that when we go to a place of worship in some other tradition, then we should stay there in a mood of respect, contemplating that the Lord who manifests to me in a familiar form in my tradition is manifesting here in an unfamiliar form in a different tradition. So because of the different manifestation and because of my system of training, I am unable to comprehend him fully. But still, by seeing how merciful this Lord is, that he is manifested in a different way to attract a different group of people, my appreciation for his mercifulness is increased, and my attraction to him in the form that I am familiar with, that my devotion to that form is increased. So by seeing others' commitment to their, we can respect others' commitment to their faith. We don't have to go about, especially if we are going to interfaith meetings. We are interacting with people who are committed to a particular faith. Then we don't go there with a conversionist agenda. We go there for having cordial relationships. And nowadays, when we live in a secular world, often those who are religious people, they often need to work together to maintain, to protect religion. So we have Prabhupada writing a letter to Pope John Paul II, where he says that we should all work together to counter godlessness in society. So Prabhupada wrote to Pope John Paul at his time, and then similarly the Pope at that time. And the point is that that we need to work together with people who are faith leaders of other traditions. Quite often in a secular world, which is increasingly anti-religion, anti-God. So for that purpose, we respect them and encourage them to follow their path in whatever way is appropriate according to our position and our relationship with them. Now, ISKCON Communications Ministry has got a faith statement on interfaith, and this is also passed by GBC, and I won't go into the full statement over here. So, 2 points I'll make. That first is that we respect the with respect to other, there are so many religions and religious expressions in this world. So how do we deal with them? So we consider love of God to be the highest expression of highest spiritual expression. Naturally, we can very easily relate with those who aspire for love for a personal God. But where in those spiritual paths where a personal conception of God is not manifest, then there also we accept their spiritual worth, because they are also helping people move towards spirituality in some way or the other. And even those organizations, those forums, those religious organizations focus more on ethical, moral, social contributions. They are also helping the social fabric, so we appreciate them also. Now the way we deal with them will vary according to time, place, circumstance. And then one more important point, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that one should not always go about proclaiming the controversial superiority of one's own religious teachers over others. He says one can and one should believe in such superiority, but nothing good can be achieved by constantly speaking about the superiority to others. So for example, in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, we have a very elevated conception of revelation of God and a very elevated conception of love for God. But when we are interacting with people of other faith, and especially if you're in an interfaith forum, then that is not the forum for proving our superiority. That is a forum for developing relationships. So, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, one should not always be in the mood of proving one's controversial superiority. So that it is controversial, and there are forums for outreach, and in forums for outreach, if you're preaching the Siddhanta, where we are asked, where we have the point where we are meant to preach the Siddhanta, there we should definitely do. People who are coming to us in our programs, and definitely we speak the philosophy over there in a way that inspires people to take it up. But with people of other faith, we have to deal in a sensitive way. We respect what they are following, encourage them to follow better, and we develop friendly relationship with them. So in this way, leaders can deal with different groups of people in a way that promotes Krishna's mission effectively. Thank you. Hare Krishna.